They say rock bottom teaches you lessons the top never will. But what if you've never even seen the bottom until your own father throws you there? The headlines were brutal. Carrington air crashes, yacht during drunken party, 3 injured. Paparazzi photos splashed across every news outlet, showing Blake Carrington half-naked champagne in one hand, grinning like the world owed him forgiveness. But back at the Carrington estate, forgiveness had a price, and Walter Carrington was done paying. The morning sun lit the marble foyer like a spotlight as Blake stumbled in, still in yesterday's designer clothes, hair tousled, breath stained with liquor and regret. His father stood atop the grand staircase, a newspaper in one hand, rage barely contained in the other. "This is the last time you humiliate this family," Walter's voice boomed. Blake smirked. "Come on, Dad. No one died. Cut a check, settle the press, move on. It's what we do." "Not anymore," Walter said. "You're done." And just like that, everything unraveled. By sundown, Blake Carrington, the golden boy of penthouses and private jets, would be living in a crumbling apartment in Cedar Grove Heights with a suitcase full of irrelevant wealth. No more trust fund, no more car, no more protection. Just him and the world he never believed was real. What he didn't know yet was that inside that world lived a woman who would change everything he thought he knew about love, worth, and redemption. But first, he had to learn what it meant to be nothing. The car ride was silent. James, the family driver since Blake was 8, glanced occasionally through the rearview mirror, but said nothing. What was there to say? The young man in the back seat, once destined for boardrooms and beachfront parties, now looked like a broken portrait of himself, drowning in tailored clothes that didn't fit this new life. Outside, the tinted windows, glass towers gave way to graffiti-stained bricks. Luxury bled into bare necessity. The address on the envelope led to a crumbling building in Cedar Grove Heights. The paint peeled like dead skin. A flickering streetlight buzzed overhead. A trio of teenagers sat on the stoop, eyeing the black Mercedes like it didn't belong, which it didn't. "We're here, Mr. Blake," James said quietly. Blake didn't move. His knuckles clenched the handle of the suitcase, Louis Vuitton, monogrammed absurd. Slowly he stepped out. The heat hit like a slap. Laughter followed as the teens chuckled behind their hands. "Hey, rich boy," one of them called. "Your butler forgot to carry your bags." Blake said nothing. He pulled the heavy door, jiggled a rusty key into a stubborn lock, and disappeared into a dim, sour-smelling hallway. The elevator had an out-of-order sign scrawled in Sharpie. 4 floors later, sweat clung to his back like punishment. Apartment 4B was smaller than his closet. A bed, a stove, a door he assumed led to a bathroom he wasn't ready to see. The light switch did nothing. The silence pressed in. His phone buzzed. A text from Walter. "Electricity comes on tomorrow. Consider this your first lesson. Good night." Blake hurled the phone. It clattered against the wall and fell silent. Lying on the thin mattress in the dark, he curled in on himself for warmth, not from the cold, but from the emptiness. Tomorrow he would report to the Cedar Grove Community Center for minimum wage work. He didn't know it yet, but a woman was waiting there, and she wouldn't care about his last name. Monday came like a slap to the face. Blake stood outside the Cedar Grove Community Center in the same wrinkled white shirt he'd found buried in the bottom of his suitcase. It had no label, no designer, no worth. The building looked old but proud, like it had weathered storms without ever asking for pity. Bright murals danced across the walls, children's drawings taped to every window. Laughter echoed faintly from inside. He felt like an intruder. "You must be Blake." The voice was firm, warm, and absolutely not impressed. Blake turned. She wore jeans and a faded purple t-shirt with the center's logo. Her skin glowed against the morning light, and there was a strength in the way she held herself. Like the building behind her stood tall because she did. "I'm Janelle Robinson," she said, offering her hand. "I run the after-school programs here." He took it almost cautiously. Her grip was steady, grounded, the opposite of him. Blake Carr. He caught himself. Just Blake. One eyebrow lifted, but she didn't push. "Well, just Blake. We're short on staff, patience, and time. Welcome aboard." He followed her inside, barely keeping up as she pointed out classrooms, computer labs, kitchens. She spoke fast, moved faster. We serve over 100 kids daily. Seniors in the mornings, GED prep at night. Everyone pulls weight. No one's above a mop or a frying pan. Got it. Blake nodded, dazed. Your first assignment, help Miss Rosa in the kitchen. She'll explain. Miss Rosa was 80 if she was a day, her arms full of cereal boxes. Blake hesitated, unsure. Janelle gave him a look that burned hotter than the kitchen stove. He scrambled to help. You're prettier than the last boy they sent. Miss Rosa smiled sweetly. Hope you last longer. By lunchtime, his shirt clung to him with sweat, his back ached, and his overpriced shoes had blistered both feet. No one praised him. No one cared who he'd been. He was just another warm body doing what needed to be done. And for the first time in his life, Blake felt invisible. Blake didn't quit, not yet. Day after day, he showed up, hauling chairs, scrubbing floors, slicing fruit for snack time. No one gave him a medal. No one cared that his back ached, or that his hands, once manicured weekly, now bore calluses. But something strange was happening. The kids started waving when they saw him. Miss Rosa saved him the good coffee. And Janelle started calling him by name, not just hey you. One afternoon, as they cleaned up after a parent workshop, she tossed him a rag and said, You're not half as useless as I thought you'd be. Blake smirked, surprised how much that meant to him. They worked late into the evening planning a small community fair to raise funds. She knew every face in the neighborhood, every child's story. He was in awe, and he wanted to tell her the truth about who he was, where he came from. But he was afraid it would erase everything he was finally starting to build. So he stayed silent, until the past came crashing through the door. Blake Carrington, a shrill voice cried out. He froze. Madison, ex-girlfriend, gossip magnet socialite, strode into the center like she owned the place, camera phone already recording. Oh my God, it is you. Everyone said your dad cut you off, but I thought it was just a PR stunt. She looked around the center and wrinkled her nose. Is this punishment or charity cosplay? Janelle stepped into the hallway. Her eyes landed on Madison, then on Blake. Carrington, she said, quiet and sharp as a blade. Blake opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Janelle stared at him through him, and something behind her eyes went cold. I trusted you, she whispered. Not because of who you were, but because I thought you were finally being real. She turned and walked away. And for the second time in his life, Blake watched a woman disappear because of the man he used to be. The next morning, Janelle didn't show up. Miss Rosa didn't ask questions. She just handed Blake a dish towel and said, You can sulk while drying plates, or you can dry plates while sulking. Either way, we need clean dishes. Blake chose the plates. The silence in the center was heavy. Kids avoided him. Volunteers glanced, whispered, and moved on. By lunch, Blake had retreated to a storage room slumped beside boxes of crayons and bulk rice. He stared at the wall, wondering if this was the part where he gave up. Went back to being the man everyone assumed he was. That's when Deshaun, one of the teenagers, popped his head in. They say you lied, he said flatly. Blake looked up, exhausted. They're not wrong, but they also say you raised like $500 in 2 hours for our science club last week. Blake blinked. I did. Then I don't care where you came from. Just don't quit on us. The teen vanished before Blake could reply. Later that day, while reshelving books in the after-school reading corner, Blake overheard a little girl whispering to another, Oh, he helped me fix my math homework. Didn't even laugh when I cried. Maybe he's not a bad guy, the other girl said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. That evening, Janelle returned. She didn't speak to Blake, didn't look at him, but she didn't fire him either. Instead, she called a staff meeting. We're still short on funds for the summer program, she announced. We either cancel or we get creative. Her eyes scanned the room, stopped just briefly on him. Blake straightened. I have an idea, he said. The next few weeks changed everything. Blake woke up at dawn. He wore thrifted polos and off-brand sneakers. He packed peanut butter sandwiches in plastic bags and learned to make coffee just the way Miss Rosa liked it, 3 sugars, no cream. He walked to work, took the stairs without complaining, knew where the mop bucket lived and how to fix a jammed copier. The staff began to nod when he passed. The kids smiled without flinching. Even Janelle, though still distant, started giving him to-do lists without hesitation. It wasn't love, but it was trust rebuilt one quiet moment at a time. The community fair idea had taken root, and Blake threw himself into it like a man with something to prove. He remembered how his father's corporate events were run cold, transactional, soulless. This would be different. He visited every shop on the block, begged, bargained, helped a mechanic set up his online booking in exchange for gift card donations, carried crates for the corner grocer, designed flyers by hand, walked door to door with kids from the art class who called him Mr. Blake, like he'd always belonged there. Janelle noticed. One night after a long day of planning, she caught him rewiring lights in the homework room. "You could have left," she said quietly, arms crossed. Blake didn't turn around. "I thought about it." "But you didn't." "I've left a lot of things in my life," he said, standing. "But this place, these kids, I couldn't." They stood in silence, not romantic, not resolved, but real. The night before the fair, a thunderstorm knocked out half the decorations. A vendor canceled. One of the bounce houses popped. Blake worked past midnight with Deshawn and 2 volunteers duct taping, repainting, and rebuilding. By dawn, the playground sparkled with banners, booths, and borrowed joy. And when the first family arrived, Blake stood at the gate, greeting them with a shy, worn-out smile. He didn't wear a name tag. But the neighborhood knew who he was now. Not Blake Carrington, just Blake. The fair was a triumph. Families danced under string lights. Kids raced between booths with sticky fingers and painted faces. Volunteers laughed as they served homemade food. For once, Cedar Grove Heights felt like the center of the universe. Janelle stood on a makeshift stage, microphone in hand. "Every dollar raised today will go to our summer youth program. And every smile here tonight. That's proof we're doing something right." She turned to Blake, nodding. He smiled, not because it was expected, but because for the first time he felt like he had earned it. Then came the thunder that wasn't weather. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. The kind of vehicle no one drove around here unless they were lost or making a statement. Walter Carrington stepped out, tailored to perfection, flanked by assistants. Conversations hushed. Music dimmed. Even the bounce house seemed to deflate slightly under his presence. Blake froze. His father walked straight toward the stage like it was his boardroom. The crowd parted. Janelle's jaw tightened. "I see you've made yourself quite at home." Walter said, his voice smooth and cold. "Let's talk, son." "We're busy," Blake said, heart pounding. Walter ignored him and turned to Janelle. "Miss Robinson, I understand this center has done commendable work. Let's not let this little social experiment go on too long." He reached into his coat. "A checkbook, of course. $1 million, he said, pen poised, in exchange for some gentle encouragement to get my son back where he belongs." The crowd gasped. Janelle didn't blink. "The good we do here isn't for sale," she said quietly, "and neither am I." Walter chuckled, adding another 0. Blake stepped forward. "Dad, stop." But his father just smiled. "Everyone has a price, even love." Janelle's hand trembled, just for a second, but her voice rock steady. "Then you never understood love at all." Walter's offer hung in the air like poison. $1 million, enough to fund the center for 3 years, enough to fix every broken ceiling, buy new supplies, give the kids everything they deserved. And yet Janelle looked at the check like it was on fire. "The good we do here isn't about money," she said, voice clear. "It's about teaching these kids they matter, that their dreams can't be bought or bargained away." Walter's smile faded. "You've known him, 2 months? I'm his father. I know what's best." "No." Blake stepped in, voice steady. "You know what's profitable. You know what looks good in the papers. But you don't know me. Not anymore." Walter's jaw clenched. "You think this little rebellion makes you righteous?" Blake turned to the crowd, heart pounding. You all deserve to know why I came here. I didn't choose this life. I was thrown into it. And at first I hated it. But now I've never felt more human, more useful. He looked at Janelle. And I've never met anyone more real than her. Cameras flashed. Someone had been recording since Walter stepped out of the car. That's when Rachel Carrington stepped forward, poised, elegant, but with eyes like steel. Walter, she said, stop. Not now, Rachel. No, now. She pulled a folder from her bag and handed it to the nearest journalist. Inside are 20 years of questionable business dealings, fraud, bribery, names, dates, bank transfers. This is the truth about Walter Carrington. The crowd erupted. Walter lunged for the folder, but it was too late. Rachel turned to her son. You deserve a legacy that doesn't rot from the inside. Blake stared at his mother, stunned. You knew, she smiled softly, and now the world will too. Walter's face turned gray as the reporters swarmed him. For once he had no script, and in that moment, Blake realized something powerful. Truth, when spoken by the right voice, was louder than any dollar. Walter Carrington was arrested the next morning. The footage had gone viral overnight. His confrontation with Janelle, Blake's defiant speech, Rachel's quiet courage. The internet had picked a side, and it wasn't the billionaire in the bespoke suit. News vans camped outside Carrington Enterprises. Former employees came forward with stories. Investors backed away. His empire crumbled, brick by poison brick. At the Cedar Grove Community Center, life moved forward. Janelle stood before the board of directors, chin high, voice unwavering. I have nothing to hide. Yes, I once loved someone who made a mistake. Yes, I stood beside Blake Carrington without knowing who he truly was. But what matters is what we do now. There was a long silence. Then one board member stood up. You held your ground when anyone else would have folded. We need leaders like you. Others followed. Apologies were made. Hands were extended. Janelle didn't cry, but her fingers shook when she took the new grant approval letter from the chairwoman. Across the room, Blake watched it all, his chest tight, his throat burning. Miss Rosa elbowed him. She didn't just earn that respect, she fought for it. And so did you. Later that day, kids ran across the halls like the world hadn't changed. But it had. Parents stopped Blake to thank him. Seniors brought him pie. Deshawn slapped his back like they were brothers. Janelle found him on the back steps at dusk. Feels like we've been holding our breath for weeks, she said. We can finally exhale, Blake replied. She looked at him. Really looked. You stood up to the man who taught you to never show weakness. Blake gave a half smile. Turns out strength looks different than I thought. She reached for his hand. He took it. And the moment was quiet, solid, earned. Not a happy ending. A new beginning. Summer rolled in with long days and brighter skies. The center buzzed with activity, children painting murals, teens leading workshops, seniors planning a rooftop garden, funded by a new community grant. The past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined them. And neither did it define Blake. He'd traded his title for something quieter, something more permanent. Each morning he showed up early. Each night he stayed late. Not because anyone asked him to, but because he wanted to. One afternoon, as they organized supplies for the new mentorship program, Janelle pulled him aside. I've been thinking, she said, tugging gently on his shirt sleeve, about that empty office down the hall, the one with the leaky ceiling, he teased. She smiled. We fixed the leak, and it's yours if you want it. Blake blinked. You're offering me a job? No, she said softly. I'm offering you a place to stay, to grow, to lead. If you want to help build something permanent. He looked around. The walls were still chipped. The floor still squeaked. But this place had more foundation than any mansion he'd ever lived in. I want that, he said. And in that moment, it wasn't about proving himself. It was about being seen, truly seen. Later that evening, they sat together on the old wooden swings behind the center, where it had all begun. Janelle turned to him. You know what I realized? What? You never once said you loved me. He inhaled, heart racing. I didn't want to say it too soon, he admitted. Didn't want to ruin it. She raised an eyebrow. And now? He smiled. Now I know I mean it. He took her hand gently, firmly. I love you, Janelle. Not because you believe in me, but because you showed me how to believe in myself. She didn't answer with words. She kissed him. And in that quiet golden hour, the boy who once owned everything finally understood what it meant to have something that couldn't be bought. The new sign went up on a warm Saturday morning. The Robinson Carrington Center for Youth Empowerment. Hand-painted by the kids, sealed with community hands. Janelle watched from the sidewalk, fingers laced with Blake's. The name wasn't about ego. It was about legacy, the kind that lifted others. That afternoon, they held a neighborhood celebration. No cameras, no press, just music, laughter, and the smell of Miss Rose's sweet potato pie floating through the air. During the cleanup, Sarah, the little girl who once drew her family in crayon, ran up to Blake with a fresh picture. "This is you," she beamed, "and Miss Janelle, and the big tree." Blake crouched down, tears stinging his eyes. Why the tree? 'Cause trees grow when people take care of them. He hugged her, holding on a little longer than he meant to. Later that night, Blake sat at the desk in his small apartment, the same one he had once hated. Now it felt like home. He opened his laptop and began to type. Dear Dad, you taught me a lot about power, about money, about control. But Janelle taught me something more valuable. That strength isn't domination. It's kindness. That success isn't ownership. It's impact. That love. Love isn't something you earn with wealth. It's something you give without fear. I don't hate you, but I don't want to become you. And that's the greatest gift you ever gave me. Goodbye. Blake. He hit send. No anger, no regret. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, but inside the center, kids would return the next day. Dreams would be drawn, futures would begin, and in the heart of it all, a woman who believed, and a man who chose to become worthy of that belief. Because sometimes the real inheritance is becoming someone your younger self needed.